So the next topic is about how do we describe solution architecture. So the first is that they got the consume. Yeah, so basically we need to, as a solution architect is coming into the next value chain after the enterprise architecture has been developed. So what do I mean by enterprise architecture has been developed is where the business architecture view has been modeled, infrastructure architecture view has been modeled, information architecture view has been modeled, and software architecture view has been modeled. So solution architect need to be able to read all this, read all the business infra, information, and software. That's why the training courses itself are covering almost 4 domains and how you connect all of them. Then from there, the solution architect, we need to develop and update the modern architecture to develop a solution. So this is where you do basically, of course, this is enterprise architecture repository. Then after that, you deliver the architecture. You deliver the architecture through the project, where you look at the viewpoint, the template, the view, the actual model, the matrices, the value, and all the artifacts related to the particular scope of work. So basically the transition, there will be the architecture building block, whereby you have to manage and select. Then after that, you create and deliver the solution building block. So this is basically aligned to the TOGAF that I'm going to share in the next couple of slides, where the solutioning part is where we also defining the target states about the solution. Then from there, they got any manage, any changes, we also go back into the defining the architecture building block in terms of the business strategy, capability map, business case, valuation, and guideline. Then from there, we deliver another project. So this cycle, it will never end. So let me just give you an example of the engagement artifacts. So engagement at the program level, in the selection, you need to justify the business case. You need to understand the business strategy behind it. You need to have the capability map. So you know exactly which are the capability impacted. Then from there, you can define your architecture. So you look at the architecture assessment, risk assessment, architecture description, then you deliver. You deliver in terms of the program, in terms of change management, risk and governance impact, and then you do manage in terms of the value realization, engagement update, value optimization, and future project. Then in the project itself, you basically look at the business case in the selection, because you want to make sure that your project have a business case. You don't do the project that has a little business case because it has no value. It's better to combine into a very strategic project that has a bigger business value. Then the next one, to create architecture description, value guide. Then you look at the delivery requirement, delivery architecture, and the management itself in terms of the engagement update to the various key stakeholders. Then when you do the update, is where you do look at the change request, because typically this is the life cycle, so you know exactly they got a need of the change. The change can come from the business or the technology side. Then after that, you create the impact document. Then after that, you do a delivery. Then in terms of the management, you prioritize the update, because not all update you should accept. You need to prioritize them and rank them by value and risk. So example of the solution architecture questionnaire, this is something that every solution architect need to ask. Given a particular task, is the ROI real? Do we have the ROI? If not, then we shouldn't be doing it unless it is a regulatory compliance. Yeah, so besides regulatory compliance, I think every request need to be justified by the ROI. The second one, of course, the technology component itself. Is it strategic or not? Because if not, then we should postpone or study further in depth. Can they be used to make more money or business value? This is very, very important. If you are in running enterprise, you're working in an enterprise organization, you need to make sure that everything that you do in the solutioning bring company more profit or more revenue. But if you are in the government or non-profit body, you need to deliver business value. You need to know that. And how does this impact the overall deployment topology? We need to answer that. What else is being built? Should this be built? Can we reuse existing component? Because sometimes we don't want to create another island, so we better emphasize a lot on the reusability. Can the organization handle it? So we want to see whether we have a maturity, we have things in place to run, to execute, or to support our system once the solution is being delivered. Will the organization accept it? So we need to know, can everyone accept this new solution? Is it just reliable enough, just secure enough, or just usable enough, and etc. So all these questions need to be answered. So let me share with you on the ArchiMate notation, because this is something that typically today in all the architecture deliverable and modeling, we are using ArchiMate. So ArchiMate has been popular in the last 10 years. So basically it's about how can we describe, analyze, and visualize the architecture across domain, across business unit, across application, across system, across information, across infrastructure. And of course, the ArchiMate actually is the combination of the UML. For those of you who learn about UML and the BPMN, BPMN is actually about business modeling. UML is about defining or designing a software and infrastructure. So ArchiMate actually is the marry between the UML and BPMN, and how can that can be used to describe the architecture to the enterprise modeling. So this is the example on the ArchiMate layers. Basically, you can see here they got multiple layers. They got the strategy layers, they got business layer, they got application layer, technology layer, physical layer, and implementation layer. This make ArchiMate is very clean and neat, because what happened is that you can segregate the enterprise based on the layers. So if you got anything that you are invited, for instance, to the senior management meeting, and you know they'll be touching a lot of strategy layer, because this is where they are looking into the changing of the particular area. And of course, that one also supported by the motivation, those the strategy and business layer. Then application is where about all the software system that you have, and the infrastructure technology, and physical layer basically about the warehouse, could be a conveyor belt, could be the sensor, and etc. And implementation is where you execute all the projects. So ArchiMate is giving us the tool. How can we describe enterprise into the concise and the meaningful symbolic language, like what you see here as the building block. So ArchiMate, as I mentioned just now, we can see that how the business itself supported by the application and the technology. Not only here we can see that being supported, but also dependency. And also here we can see the impact. So if anything changes at the business layer, we can trace down from all the line all the way into the which infrastructure is impacted. Same thing when the technology layer, when there's some changes, we know exactly at the business layer which one is impacted, because the line are all connected here. So this is where something that today many enterprises don't have it, unfortunately. But actually this is what they needed the most today in transforming the enterprise. This example of the data acquisition for the IoT. So this is actually the symbol of the ArchiMate at the physical layers for your reference. The same thing for the technology architecture view, gap and solutioning, is where that if you get some changes in terms of solutioning, this is where you can do the legend. In terms of the red one, basically something that you are going to remove. The blue one basically is something that you keep, and the green one basically something that you want to add in order for the system to meet the current today business goal or business strategy or business motivation. So this is the example of the technology architecture view. And this is the example of the project implementation view. So we know that at this the bottom boxes actually is the project. So the project here called data warehouse and BI actually is going to do some modification at this node, at this system. And this is another project, back office system integration. So they got all the hardware upgrade, phasing out legacy. So the one that phasing out is changed to red color, noted. And the blue one is where keep will be kept, and the green one actually the new one. So you can see here have the full visibility. And this diagram is not only static, but actually you can right click and you can navigate from that, because you have to use a digital EA repository to document and also model this implementation. The next one on the solution architecture lifecycle. So as you can see here, first in every situation is that, I mean, not only in architecture, we need to plan, we need to build, we need to run, and we need to manage. They call it PBRM. So IASA also defining a solution architecture lifecycle based on the PBRM, plan, build, run, and manage architecture. So during the planning phase, we need to identify potential technology values or profit, always looking at the value. And also we need to map the business metric to the valuation output, because we need to measure that it is the project giving us the return on investment. Then during the building phase, we need to research existing corporate patterns. What are the best practices? What are the gaps out there? Which basically you can use TOGAF to build that. Then after that, you can also look at the evaluate choices based on the cost benefit analysis. Then during running phase, you ensure value is generated. So you look at the basically communicating what has been achieved, what are the impact of the new system you deliver, and how the delivery method itself can meet the timeline and also budget. The next one on the managing phase, whereby you review and communicate value, and if there's any changes to update the engagement model. So this is very, very important for solution architecture to be effective and also to deliver value to the business. The next one on the typical enterprise lifecycle. So typically there must be a goal. So the goal coming from the motivation of key stakeholders. Then from there we drive the innovation. What are so-called the new solution that we are going to develop, and what are new capability that we are going to introduce. Then after that we put that into the enterprise lifecycle. So basically about plan, build, run, manage, and this will continue forever. It will never end. Yeah, it's the cycle. So basically, this is where the solution architect actually giving an input in terms of the what are the system available, what are so-called the information that we can collect from the system, and what are the parameters of the particular attributes on the meta model, etc. All coming actually, the center heart is the way the solution architecture is giving into the nearest to the real life of the system. And of course, solution architect also need to work very closely with the project manager in terms of managing the task plan, stream of project, dependency, and etc. Because sometimes the project manager alone, because as a project manager, you are really restricted in terms of the resources, timeline, and budget, but you are not so sure which one is the most important part, which one is the highly dependent. So solution architect can give a wiser input to the project manager so that the task plan or project plan, the Gantt chart can be designed into the more realistic manner. And this is where plan will run, and of course managing the entire life cycle, whereby the architect itself need to be covering also at the top level, covering the communication to the key stakeholders as well as you go down into the implementation. So the bottom part is where you have a project management, the implementation part. The build and run, the planning itself, the solution architect need to work with the rest of the enterprise architect domain like business, information, software, infrastructure to communicate and also cover addressing the key stakeholder concern. So this is basically aligned with the TOGAF. Yes, for those of you who have a TOGAF trained, then you understand that they got the architecture building block and solution building block, because TOGAF is the fundamental of the enterprise architecture framework that are widely used globally. Yeah, so basically it has been around for the last 25 years, and I think has been very, very effective. Many in our consulting practices also are referring a lot to TOGAF, because TOGAF has given us a so-called a pillar, how to and foundation, how to execute the enterprise architecture. Something to note here, actually, they got the rotating wheels, whereby the enterprise are moving forward. Yeah, so the wheel is from left to right. It's like the tire of the wheel that the car moving from moving forward. Yeah. So basically, the first part is where we come up the architecture building block. This is where we need to understand the enterprise vision and strategy. Then we understand the gap of the business, data, application, and also the infrastructure. This is where the job of 4 domain of architects. Then after that, we need to execute, where we need to do solution building block. This is where the solution architect playing a role. So the solution architect here is the role. Maybe the business architect or data architect or software architect or technology architect performing the role of solution architect. This are very common. Yeah, so unlikely you have a dedicated solution architect, just solution architect. Typically, solution architect also need to perform the role of the business architect, whereby you perform the business architect role, you also need to understand about implementing enterprise vision and strategy. So typically is that in the solution architecture building block development, you need to consolidate all the gap from this vision, strategy, business, data, develop software and technology. Then you're prioritizing as a project. Then you're approving the project, finalizing the project plan. Then you implementing project and executing governance. Then after that, you manage changes. So this is basically is the same like earlier I mentioned about solution architecture lifecycle, about a plan, build, run, and manage. So this is based on the TOGAF methodology. So this is something that very critical. So for those of you who haven't learned about the TOGAF, this is something that I think is the prerequisite. Because in the typical engagement, when I work a lot in the many enterprise architecture engagement, so all our client is the mandatory to have a TOGAF train and also ITABOK train and ArchiMate train. Without that training, we will not be able to continue in our engagement, because that is the mandatory, because this knowledge will be used and applied into the real life implementation of architecture. So they got multiple iteration life cycle. the same thing. So they got the application development iteration, they got transition planning iteration, they got architecture governance iteration, and capability iteration. And I do have I think a couple of the webinar on the TOGAF. So those of you, if you got the link on the webinar in the YouTube, and you can listen to the how I explain the TOGAF in a brief and a concise manner in less than 1 hour. So you can listen to understand about how this transition work, iteration work, and how the TOGAF delivering so-called a framework for the transformation. Then of course, at the end of the day, after you come out all this, you have what I call it digital enterprise map, which is what like the GPS on the road today. This is the GPS for your enterprise. If you are working for the government, ministry, or agency, this is basically the GPS of your ministry or agency. So you understand all the motivation and strategy layer, the top layers. Then you also understand the business layer, which one impacted, the function, the process, the roles, and also all the application that are supporting the business and the infrastructure supporting the business, as well as the data. What are the data information is used or impacted? And the last part is where you do the implementation or project modeling, which what just now I showed earlier. So this is a very, very useful because today many enterprises don't have this map. What they have is that this map exists in a few departments or a few of the senior people that has been working for some time in the organization. But unfortunately, that information is not shared across the organization. So by having the digital enterprise map, we can have a so-called transparency. We can help us. It can help us in the doing the following, like faster decision making, because we know exactly the impact when we make particular decision. We know exactly which one is impacted from all these relationship, and also perform impact analysis. We know the which one is impacted, and also help us to comprehend situation at hand. So we know that, oh, this is no wonder this is our business process today, and we cannot continue doing this because we need to collaborate with other departments, etc. So we can make a strategic decision wiser and faster, and understand enterprise dependency. We can manage the complexity, and of course we can perform enterprise troubleshooting. This is very, very important in the today rapid digital world. And of course, the most important part is about to perform the transformation, because transformation is something that everyone needed today in the digital era. Because without that, I think we cannot survive, because the transformation is allow us to adapt, adopt, and also move on into the new business model. Just now I mentioned about transformation, about business transformation, workplace transformation, information transformation, thought leadership transformation, and etc. So for instance, this is where the business application and infrastructure layers dependency. We know exactly from the business layer, which application layer supporting that and which infrastructure layer. So this is just an example. And of course, this diagram is not only a static diagram, but it is a living diagram in the repository that you can analyze, you can understand the impact, and you can also create a dashboard to feature this all the information, the relationship, the data to the senior management for decision making. And the same thing like motivation layer from the senior management, which are the business layer that are impacted. The process here in the context of this example is the handle claim. Then after that, which application supporting that, and which infrastructure layer. So this is something very, very important for architects to know and to have these pictures. Not only we are talking about this particular project scope of work, but we know exactly which of the layers that the project, if I'm working on the particular this general CRM system, I need to know exactly which business process, which are the motivation layers impacted. So example on the typical key stakeholders on the concern that belong to the board of director. In terms of the board director want to have concern on the profitability. So how can now we model the strategy? Yeah, so this is just an example for your reference. So this is the digital customer intimacy strategy. As you can see here at the middle here, this actually is the strategy that needed to be supported by the digital customer management capability and data-driven insurance capability. So this capability are required to in order for this strategy to be successful. And this strategy will realize the outcome, which is we will have the best-in-class online customer experience, and of course detailed insight in customer behavior, and which in turn influencing the goal that we have in terms of increasing revenue. And this will definitely contribute to the profitability, and profitability is where one of the driver belong to the board of director. So here we can see that what we do, we have a connection and we know exactly that who are our key stakeholders, what actually they are trying to achieve by implementing the system. So this is very, very important because typically this information is not available. Maybe you only know about the project benefit, but you don't know about this motivation part. This is where the architects need to play a critical role, need to have the coverage of the key stakeholders. And of course, the interesting part on the having the enterprise architecture is that it addresses a lot of the stakeholders. As you can see here in this diagram, it addresses even the strategy. You know exactly the head of strategy or strategy team. If you are performing this role, you know exactly that any changes to the strategy, which are the things will be impacted in the enterprise, which are the things that depend on your strategy. So you get the information. For business architect itself to understand about all the role, function, business unit that are impacted because they got a strategy or motivation or driver change. And for the chief digital officer, you know exactly about what is your current digitalization index or maybe perhaps your digitalization effort. So you can analyze the entire organization and make the necessary adjustment from there. Then from the chief customer officer, you know exactly which are the technology or which are the interfaces, which are the touch points that are addressing various client engagement with your organization. So you can customize from there and you know exactly what are the area that you need to improve. Then for the enterprise architect, of course, you can do all the modeling for you to define the meta model, the dashboard for decision making. For the technology portfolio, you know exactly all the life cycle of the technology in terms of the which one is end of support, end of life. And for the portfolio manager, basically, you know exactly all the application that you have at hand. And solution architect is where you have the so-called impact about the solution that you are working on into the project. Like just now, I earlier showed it to you. You know exactly that which are the stakeholders impacted, what are the value, what are the strategy that you're trying to fulfill. That's very, very important for solution architect too. Then investment manager, in terms of which are the investment very, very strategic, and how much would the cost of the investment, like 2 million or 3 million, what is the impact? You can understand the scope of work involved and also the strategic value of because you can connect directly to the strategy. This is the beauty of the enterprise architecture digital EA platform. And of course, you know, for the risk officer, like now I think in the era of digital, they got cybersecurity. So you can look at the risk area in terms of the categorization, the impact, and etc. So digital enterprise architecture platform, I think today is a very, very advanced already. It has changed a lot compared to like 5 or 10 years ago. And now it's an integrated platform to offer various key stakeholders in terms of addressing their concerns and their needs. So strategic enterprise architecture basically helping us to become like command and control. If you understand about the command and control is very, very important in the military. The same thing now in the enterprise is that the enterprise architecture is playing this role. So we understand in terms of the, when we develop on the left hand side here, business strategic planning, IT strategic planning, and digital transformation planning. So we can use the EA to drive all the strategic planning. And of course, the portfolio and the risk and the vendor management. We know exactly which are the technology required, what are the risks that we can tolerate. And of course, technology management in terms of the portfolio, the life cycle, and also change management. So with that, let me just share with you the video, a short 1.5 minute video in terms of the strategic value of enterprise architecture.
Enterprise architecture is a practice that supports the evolution and change of an organization during its transformation into a digital business. It's really through the delivery of an organizational level architectural landscape that it provides the support of the delivery of real business value. And it gives a systematic and integrated view of an organization's capabilities. And that becomes the basis of how business can adapt to new trends. So by informing business strategy, business operations, and IT delivery, for example, enterprise architecture can really help organizations address new trends and become more efficient in the way they adopt or react to new disruptive business models, including all of these things we hear about, like the Internet of Things and smart cities, digital customer experiences, and virtual reality. We see Uber, for example, being hugely disruptive in the mobility and transport industry. Enterprise architecture can help other organizations assess their strategic capabilities and to respond to that and react to it and adapt to new trends. Enterprise architecture really helps to understand organizations in a holistic and systematic sort of way. And it's that really provides the firm foundation for evolution and change. So it's really important that business and IT leaders appreciate the significance of enterprise architecture and how it underpins business transformation, and are prepared to invest the time and resources in this key area to help push their businesses forward.